Hey there, it's time for another AAA Wednesday session, Ask Alyssa Anything, where I am answering all your questions about book publishing, querying literary agents, and strengthening your story. Thank you so much to all of you who have joined this amazing YouTube community of mine. I am so proud of what we have built, and I'm really enjoying getting to engage with you on this deeper level, so please keep the questions coming. If you haven't yet subscribed, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It really means a lot to me. And I also wanted to let you know I have a free resource that I created specifically for my YouTube viewers. The link is in the description below. It is my free story self-assessment tool. If you have a work in progress, it's going to help you identify the strengths and weaknesses in it to then go back to the drawing board with your revisions and take it to the next level. This is a great tool to use if you are preparing to query literary agents, if you've queried for a while and aren't sure what could potentially be wrong with the story, or whether you are prepping for self-publishing, so definitely check it out. It's also going to sign you up for my newsletter where I give exclusive insights and tips not available anywhere on my YouTube channel, so don't miss out on that as well. We have some great questions today, so let's dive in. First question here, do you have any advice or agent suggestions for writers that fall more on the literary fiction side than commercial or genre fiction side? I find when I Google how to pitch literary fiction or agents interested in litfic, nothing very specific comes up, especially when looking up agents, because the search engine pretty much combines literary agent with literary fiction and just gives a huge range of agents and agencies instead of agents interested in repping litfic. I totally see why you're having trouble navigating this and finding agents specifically interested in literary fiction, because unfortunately, many times, especially in online databases, even on places like Amazon and Goodreads that classify books, literary fiction isn't really treated as its own genre, and it ends up kind of being a catch-all term for pretty much any work of fiction. However, literary agents themselves are very attuned to what the specifics of the genre literary fiction are, and they know the differences between genre fiction and literary fiction, but when you're on these databases and searching for genres an agent represents, it's likely going to be a bit more tricky. If you're using something like Query Tracker or another database like Manuscript Wishlist, what I recommend doing is searching literary fiction, of course, if you're given that option. But if you're not given that option and or you're not finding a lot of agents that specify literary fiction in their specialties, I recommend searching for adjacent genres, because many times a work of literary fiction is also classified as a family saga. Many times it's also historical fiction, or it's contemporary fiction. Maybe it's coming of age. So search all of those adjacent genres that still apply to your story, and then go into the agent's specific profile, their website, and look at the previous books that they have helped to publish and see if any of them have more of a literary feel. That should help bring up more agents in your search, because certainly there are plenty of agents that are interested in literary fiction and more literary writing. However, it's likely that they are putting the other more specific genres on their profiles. Here's another question. I have a question about option clauses when your editor gets first/exclusive look at your next book. I'm currently working on my first book with an editor I really like, congrats, and have had a good experience with the house overall. This editor gets first look at my next novel per our contract. I understand this in the big picture, and my agent explained it well, but I guess I'm curious about any insight into how this can go on a more personal level. Like, I imagine if they pass on this next book, it'll be terribly awkward. Would we ever discuss it? Or if they offer on it and my agent and I want to submit it to other editors, that also seems awkward. Any insight would be appreciated. So first I want to talk a little bit about this first look clause, because for some authors who haven't signed a book deal yet, they might not be familiar. This is basically a clause in your book deal contract that says the editor who has bought your book that you are currently working to publish with them is going to have the first chance to look at whatever your next book is, and they can first decide if they want to make you an offer before anyone else sees it. This is standard in the Big Five publishing world, because editors at publishing houses, just like literary agents, ideally like to establish long-term relationships with the authors they work with. And if the first book publishes really well, of course that publisher/editor then wants to capitalize on that and work with you again and publish your next book, especially if you have a great working relationship. That's why they usually get to see the first look of your next book. So now to talk about your situation. What if your editor hates it and doesn't want to offer on it? Is it going to be terribly awkward? It happens. I think you need to separate the personal side of it from the business side. First, I will say, at least in my experience, it was more often that the editor was interested in the next book, and maybe they gave some notes like, we can work on this, change X, Y, and Z, but I like the overall idea. Far more often, I saw those types of communications rather than an editor saying, this idea completely sucks, give me the next book. Usually they want to work with you on your vision, but again, they like your writing and they like your storytelling and they like your ideas, so it's more likely than not that they're gonna like your next book if they liked your first one. However, there are cases where maybe they don't. Maybe you want to veer off into a totally new genre, which, by the way, authors can do and do all the time. In that case, yes, it's probably more likely that your editor is maybe not going to want to make you an offer on that other book, because maybe they're not as passionate about it, or maybe they're not as confident in the imprint that they work at's ability to publish that one as successfully as they were able to publish your other book. Because remember, imprints also specialize in specific genres. So is this going to give you a terrible relationship with this editor and ruin everything you've built together? No, it's not. Again, this is a business. Publishing is a business at the end of the day. Editors understand that, your agent understands that, so I want you to understand that as well. And if your agent believes in this next book project, they're gonna feel great about sending it to other editors, and they're going to find you that right match, even if it means it's another house. So overall, I wouldn't be too concerned. We have time for one more question today. Financially, does it really still pay to go agent publishers? Lots of people say you earn more by self-publishing. An example is in the old days you needed bookshop highlighting, but now there are much more efficient ways to advertise your book. So many young people don't use bookshops. Can you do a vid demonstrating that publishers still matter more than any alternatives? Are publishers becoming less and less relevant? Thanks, take care. I'm doing agent requests right now, but I partly wonder why, after experiencing modern book media, advertising, and publishing, publishers increasingly watch those things, they step in and go for a deal entirely based on observing how a book has already done on modern media. And they will even publish without any correction of large number of author errors, etc. Could give examples. Feel like this is my last attempt at trying to get an agent. I'm no longer convinced it's worth all the bother. I totally understand where you're coming from and your frustration with querying and wondering if traditional publishing is dead, all of these questions. I've talked about them quite a bit on my channel, but I want to address your main point here about if it financially makes sense to go the traditional publishing route over self-publishing, because people say you can make more money self-publishing. Let's look at the flip side. With self-publishing, you can also make no money, or you can lose money, because remember, when you are self-publishing, you have to put up all the money up front to publish, including any advertising that you're going to do. But with traditional publishing, you are only going to make money. The publisher is never going to ask you for money. You are going to be given an advance for the publishers to get the right to publish your book. So do you see how all of that is kind of playing out? You have to weigh the pros and cons of both options for yourself. Do you prefer the autonomy, and do you have the ability to invest in your own self-publishing path and get your book publicity and advertising, etc.? That might be a good option for you then. If you're really not interested in the DIY aspect of self-publishing, and or you don't have the funds to really get your book noticed in the plethora of books that are self-published on Amazon, then traditional publishing can be a better option if you're able to go that route. Again, publishers and agents are very selective, so the truth is that it's very tough to go the traditional publishing route. But when we are talking about finances, it is not the case that self-publishing is always going to make you more money, because you ultimately have to somehow sell those books, and you are basically the bookseller in that situation. People are not just going to find your book online. Remember that with a publishing house, they're going to do all the efforts, marketing, publicity. They're going to put your books in places that readers can find them. When you self-publish, that is your job. And if you don't do that job successfully, then you're actually likely to lose money self-publishing or not make any profit self-publishing. So if a profit is your ultimate goal with publishing, you need to weigh all of those nuances of both situations. I hope you liked the session today. If you have a question for me, leave it in the comments here. This is the queue I use when I go through and answer them. I'd love to hear what's on your mind. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and grab the free story self-assessment waiting for you in the description below. Thanks so much for watching and happy writing.